Hey everybody, welcome back, and this is tip number 3 of 7 to improve your workflow in Ableton Live. I'm going to launch straight in with what I've created here. So I've created a drum rack with macro controlled parts, allowing you to change different elements of the drum kit on the fly. So useful for coming up with ideas very quickly. You can drop in any other sounds to go alongside it, and you can be jamming along, creating new ideas before you even know it. So, if we have a look at the nuts and bolts of it, as you can see, there's quite a lot to it. So I'm going to take you step by step in how to build this awesome drum rack, which you can then save as a template and use every single time you want to come up with new ideas. Let's have a look at how I created it. Okay, so on a brand new MIDI track here, I'm going to drop an instance of drum rack. And within here is going to be really the shop window of all the instruments that we want to be able to control with the macros. These are the macros here, which we're going to map all the different samples, all the different kicks, snares, hats, etc. to these macros so that we can live, on the fly, change the sounds as the music plays along. Close the macros for now. What we need to do is to drop an instrument rack on the first pad here. Doesn't have to be C1, can be any one you like. Let's just keep it nice and clean and simple for now. Within this instrument rack, we want to put a sampler instrument. Just grab that, drop it straight in. And this sampler is going to hold a bank of samples for each of our elements of our drum kit. Let's start with the kicks, as I always like to. Go to my samples. Up in the search window, I'm going to type kick just to bring up a few kicks here. Let's select this one. These not the one that's a rhythm. And we'll drag these in to the sample area here. As you can see, there's 8 of 8 samples all selected at the moment. Click on this tab here. This shows the zones and the samples banked here. If we click on this selection, this is the select editor. Now at the moment, every single kick is going to play if we were to click C1 down here. Big mess. So what we need to do is to give each kick its own selection. To do that, I'm going to, well, they're already all selected. If they're not, we can Command A to select all. Then I'm going to drag the left from 1 and all the way over to the right here. We're going to drag these down to however many we've got. We've got 8, so 8 there. We're going to right click and distribute ranges equally. Fantastic. So now each kick has its own selection within the sampler and can be played individually. At this stage, I just wanted to make a couple of points. If I hadn't have selected these zones before I distributed them equally, let me show you what happens. I'm going to go back a couple of steps here. Okay. If I'd have just right-clicked on here, distribute ranges equally, without first setting the 8, you can see it has distributed them equally, but it's distributed them over the entire 128 range. And this is just a bit awkward and a bit of a picky thing, but I suppose that's just me. What this means is that as you turn the macro knob to change the kicks, between 0 and 16 will be the first kick, and then between 16 and 32 will be the second, 32 and 48 the third, etc. And it's just a bit inaccurate for me. I like to know that 1 is 1 and the last one is the last one, and each number that you dial you know is a different kick. Okay, let me just put this back to the way it was. Undo a couple of times. 1, 2, 8. Command. Equally, okay. The other thing you might have noticed is that I didn't start from 0. And again, this is just a personal thing. If we go to my finished one and just expand here, show you what I mean. It just means that 1 is number 1, 13 is number 13. I just don't like things that are called 0. It's just, maybe that's just me. I like to know that 1 is 1 and not 0 is the first one. Yeah, it's just maybe a crazy brain problem I have, but that's what works for me. I like 1 to be 1. Right, let's get back on with the creation of this. So we've distributed these selections for samples equally. So each sample has its own number, its own value. Now we need to make these changeable on the macro section. So we're going to right click on the chain selector, map to macro 1. Okay, the sample selector by default goes from 0 to 127. So this needs to be brought down. So we click on map and we can adjust the ranges from the minimum, which we want to be 1, to the maximum, obviously number 8. And now when we come out of mapping zone, re-click on the map button, you can see the sample selector now goes from 1 to 8 and it chooses each kick one by one. Brilliant. There's two other elements that I want to be able to change within this instrument rack. Firstly is the decay of the kick, and thirdly is the pitch of the kick. This just gives us even more flexibility in the sound design as we go along. So let's do that now. First of all, let's go to the filter section. What I'm going to do is turn the sustain of the sample all the way down. Now the reason for this is if I hover over decay here, you can see on the bottom left hand side the time needed to travel from the peak value to the sustain level. So what that means is that we want to be able to have full control over the length of the sample. If the sustain is up full, then the decay amount won't make any difference. So we have that on 0, and we're now going to increase the release time to full. This just ensures that whatever length we make the decay, the whole of the sample is going to be played. So let's right click on decay, map to macro 2. Here we go, decay. Let's just whack that up for now. Now we want to put the pitch control on macro 3, so we're going to go to the pitch oscillator section here, right click on transposition and map to macro 3. Now you can see what the default is from -48 to +48. That's way too big a range for tuning drums. So we're going to click on the map section again, and just like we did on the sample selector, we're going to change the minimum and maximum amounts. So I think about -12 to +12 is more than enough range to change the pitch of a kick or snare or any other drum element. Okay, let's unmap that. And now let's put this into context and tidy up a little bit as well. First of all, we're going to call this instrument rack rename, Command R for rename, kicks. And that's renamed the instrument rack also on the drum rack, our shop window. We're now going to map the sample selector to macro 1 on the drum rack. And let's rename this kicks. And just to check, that goes through 1 to 8. Excellent. And now let's put something in a MIDI clip. I'm going to come out of here, double click for a new clip. See, kicks is already set up, ready to go. Let's put 4 on the floor. Press play on here. Now this is playing sample number 1. So adjusting this macro. Excellent. That's just going through the kicks one by one. If we choose one that we like, say this one, we can now adjust the decay of it and also the transposition. Let's find one that I think sounds good. That must be a 707. I do like a 707 kick. Straightforward. Nice. Now just for aesthetics, we can give the kicks its own little colour on the drum rack here. Right, so that's the kicks done. Let's repeat the process now with snares. So going all the way back to stage 1, let's click here and we're going to drop on a new instrument rack. Let's clear the search window, go to Instruments, Instrument Rack, drop that on C#1. And then within the instrument rack, we want to put a sampler. Just like before, we want to choose a set of snare samples this time. So I'm going to go snare up here, click on my samples, and we've got quite a few to choose from here. Let's go for these lots. Obviously, I'm just choosing a few here, but you can have anything up to 128. Drop those in. We've got 9 this time. Opening up the zone window, going to the sample selector, and just like before, I'm going to start from 1, dragging them all. They're already pre-selected. Go to the end and bring them back to however many we've loaded in, and we've got 9, as is told down here. Right click on here, distribute the ranges equally. Right click, map to macro 1. Sample selectors going from 0 to 127, we don't want that, so we're going to click on map, the macro mapping. We want it from 1 to 9. That's it. Let's come out of map, which you can unclick on the map, or you can press escape key twice. Same thing. Just like the kicks, we want to be able to change the pitch or the decay. And also, you can map these to anything else you like, maybe the volume, velocity, all sorts of things. I'm just choosing to keep it fairly simple for now. Filter global section, sustain down to nothing, release up to full, right click on decay, map to macro 2. Let's turn that up a bit so it's not, if we just leave that and start playing something, we might not probably hear it, so we'll just give it a little bit of decay time. Then we want to go to the pitch area, transpose, right click, map to macro 3. Again, it's too big a range, so we click on map, -12 to +12. Escape twice. Let's turn that up to 0. Right, now let's go back to our MIDI clip. Actually, first of all, let's keep it nice and tidy, bit of housekeeping. Let's call these snares, which has also done it here. Now let's go, I love this little shortcut, this is a good one for you. Command Option L goes back between this view and the detailed view at the bottom. So double clicking on our MIDI section. Now let's add in a couple of snares on the 2 and 4, why not, keep it simple. Okay, so the sample selector is working nicely. Some of these snares are pants, aren't they? Okay, I've chosen an absolute boatload of toilet samples, but that was just luck of the draw. I think I've got a variety of velocity ones here. Never mind. I'm sure you'll choose awesome samples. You can really take your time and choose your favourite ones first. That's the best thing to do, is to put the time in choosing awesome samples first of all. Then you're only selecting or going between brilliant ones. Anyway, let's leave that for now. And we're now going to map the selector to macro 2 of the drum rack. Let's call that snares. Give it a funky colour. There we go. That'll do. Sounds crap, but doesn't matter for now. Okay, so as you can see, we're really starting to build the kit up now. So this process should start to become quite familiar now. Let's put some claps in. Clear the search bar there. First of all, actually, we want to put in an instrument rack on the next pad, and then a sampler within that instrument rack. And then in the sampler, let's find some claps in my hard drive. Oh no, let's just put clap. Not everything's called claps, Gary. Right, let's just choose these 4 because these 2 are actual longer samples, so we only want 1 hits. Okay, 4 in there. Now we need to open up the zone. Go to the selector. Choose the bank from 1. Drag that down to 4. Right click, distribute them equally. Right click on the sample selector and map to macro 1. Click on here, change the minimum and max to values to 1 to 4. Come out of there. With the claps, just like the kicks and the hats, we're going to sustain 0, release maximum, right click on decay, map to macro 2, turn it up a bit for the initial sound. Go to the pitch section, right click on transpose, map to macro 3, click on there, change the map settings, -12, +12, escape twice, let's boost it up. Let's go to our clip, let's put some claps on, random for now, see what that sounds like. Oh yeah, it's the next #1 tune this is. Okay, let's rename our instrument rack. Collapse. Stop that terrible tune for them now. And map the sample selector to macro 3 of the drum rack. And rename once again. And give it a cool colour. There we go. Let's change these up. A short sound there. And high. There we go. I hate that snare sound, I've got to change it. I do apologise for the quality, the piss poor quality, I should say, of my samples. They're not the greatest, are they? Right, let's move on. Macro 4, we're going to do closed hi-hats. Now, this process should be super swift now. We know exactly what we're doing. It's the same process throughout. Clear the search bar. Instruments, instrument rack. Drop it on the next available pad. Sampler. Drop it into the instrument rack. Search for, let's say, closed hats. I'm just going to type in closed, that should be enough. Click on samples. Yep, got a few here. Let's have all of these. And drag and drop into the sampler. We've got 9 here. Let's open up the zone. I'll scroll up to select editor. Go from 1 to 9. Right click anywhere, distribute them equally. We're going to right click on the selector, map to macro 1. Click on there, map change from 1 to 9. And come out of there. Sustain down to 0, release up to maximum, decay, right click, map to macro 2, turn it up a bit. Go to the pitch section, right click transpose, map to macro 3, click on there, change the values, the minimum and maximum, -12, +12. Escape twice, and we're out of there. Let's turn this up to 0. Let's go back to our clip, let's play it, and let's add in some hats. Yeah, that's a cool rhythm, that. Right. Let's rename the rack. CL hats. That's changed it here, which is great. Now we're going to map the sample selector of the instrument rack to macro 4 of the drum rack. Let's rename this closed hats. Funky colour. Okay, it's all working absolutely fine. Right, so just as an example, we've got the first 4 elements of our drum kit here. Also, you can add in all sorts of other things, other percussion, synth sounds, other random one-shots, whatever you like really. Let's look a little bit deeper now. So wouldn't it be good if we could add some effects to individual elements of the drum rack? So let's see how we do that. Over here we're going to open the chain list, and that reveals our return chain. We're going to enable the return chain, and that allows us to drop effects here, and we can send different amounts of each element of our drum kit to this effect. So the most obvious ones we're going to use for the drum kit are reverb, compression, delay. Let's do reverb first of all. To the audio effects section, we're going to drag and drop the reverb here. Double clicking on the reverb, because it's a send effect, a return effect, we want to turn the dry wet up to 100%. For drums, we want a room sound fairly small, let's say about between 700 and 800 milliseconds. I'm just going to take out some of the low end of the reverb. That's fine for now. And then if we press play, click on snares, and what we want to do is also enable the send area. Now you'll see this is opened up, and we can send a certain amount of the snare signal to the reverb. Let's do the same with the claps. And also the closed tab. It's good to use the same reverb for elements of a drum kit, and then it sounds a bit more glued together and like it's all being played in one room. Okay, great stuff. I think the claps will sound even more interesting. First of all, if we reduce how many there are, let's have a quick listen. Let's take out that one. Okay, just with those two, what I want to do, back to the drum rack, is send an amount of the claps to a delay. So I'm going to get a ping pong delay, put that in the return effects area, double click, oops, and I'm going to turn the dry wet up to 100% wet, feedback, bring that right back in. We don't want it to completely smother the rhythm, about 10-12%. Okay, I like this triplet beat division here. Start the rhythm. And let's send some of the claps to B, which is the ping pong delay here. There we go. It's giving it a nice stereo feel. Excellent stuff. So there you go. So there we have a completely customizable drum rack. You can take it to any extreme you like in terms of the amount of effects or the amount of samples that you use. And you could also save this as a default template so that every time you open live or you open a new live set, then your drum rack could be ready, good to go in the first track, so that whatever you do alongside it, you've got a steady fixed rhythm. You can start to come up with some really creative ideas. There we have it. Thanks ever so much for watching. Any comments, please do let me know, and if you liked it, do give it a thumbs up and a subscribe, and check out my other videos. I've still got loads more to come, so I look forward to speaking with you soon. Cheers, bye now.